Okay, cool. Now let's talk about the current trends and also specific to cybersecurity, right? And how do you approach it? For instance, there's especially cybersecurity space is rapidly evolving. The landscape is rapidly changing. It's not because of cybersecurity. Maybe some part of it is because of cybersecurity, but also because of the technology landscape is rapidly evolving. There's AI and there's a whole bunch of AI related tools, and quickly we will move towards robotics, and it will continue to explode, especially the technology space and the data space. How do you kind of evolve as a cybersecurity expert in this rapidly evolving landscape? Because this is a question I ask myself. I'm like, what am I going to do? There's a new technology coming tomorrow. So what are your suggestions?
Yeah, I think first it's important to acknowledge that it's impossible. This was hard enough I'll say back in the day, in the 2000s where, we only ran software in data centers. And so, if it wasn't on a server, you didn't have to learn it. And you didn't have, I feel like you didn't have the variety of technology that you have today. Making it even harder is the commoditization of technology, right? I'll use high performance computing as an example. It used to be that if you had to learn high performance computing, it's because you were supporting a workload that had high performance computing, and someone had made a long capital expenditure to build out that environment. And it was very specific, right? So the odds are you weren't going to run into a random customer and you need to know high performance computing. Today, you can do that on the cloud. I think all three major cloud providers do that, right? And probably some other smaller cloud providers. And so the nature of the game has changed. And as cybersecurity professionals, we really have to be up to date with just about everything. And so the first thing that I'll say is it's impossible. So now, how do I fight the impossible? There's a couple things that I do. I do read a lot. And in particular, I've been getting some of my updates from the news. The news is filled with disinformation, in my opinion, and so you kind of have to sort through what's the story they're not telling, or what is the bias or the angle of this author, and how do I get past that to get to the ground truth. But if you stick to some of the cybersecurity news articles, they tend to be a little less impacted by current media today. But definitely, reading the news. I definitely follow some folks on LinkedIn. LinkedIn articles tend to be a little bit safer than some other social media outlets. And honestly, it's a lot of, when I see a new thing, I'm diving into it and I'm going to learn it. Particularly if I think there's a chance that I'm going to see this again. And sometimes, and this does happen, and I'm admitting this publicly, sometimes I encounter something and I'm like, there's no chance I'm ever going to have to know this again. And so in my brain, I'm like, I don't need to remember. I just need to get through this one thing, and then that's good enough. But when it comes to my own learning, when I'm learning through my own experiences, one of the things that I shouldn't say I've had to do, but I started doing as I got a bit older, is I take a lot of notes. And I reference those notes constantly now. And so in a way, I've sort of created my own knowledge management, database, so to speak, where I'm able to kind of go through all of my experiences and understand what did I learn from these things, like what was that setting that caused that one security misconfiguration, and what was the complexity in setting it, or what's the operational challenge that might happen, when I try to set it to the more secure setting. That's kind of how I go about things. And then the last thing I'll throw in there is, especially today, geopolitical news has a pretty big impact on us in cybersecurity. The days of the script kiddies, they're around, but largely that's not the biggest threat we face. It's the advanced persistent threats. It's nation states. It's organized crime. It's state sponsored, or at the very least, the state doesn't do anything to dissuade folks from performing some of these activities. And so watching geopolitical news can help you get a real sense of what's going on. Good example that's happened in the last few weeks is with all of the unrest in the Middle East. There's a group of Iranian hackers that's targeting uh, water treatment facilities inside the United States that are using Israeli-made PLCs.
Mhm.
And so if you follow the news and you pay attention to something like that, and PLCs happen to be part of your purview, you would know I need to be on a heightened state, and maybe I need to start researching some tools, techniques, and procedures, and some threat intel. And it just tells you to be better informed about the threats that you are going to face.
Correct.
I think it's a little easier to do that today than it used to be, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think there are common themes I'm learning here. Being more aware of the threat landscape is extremely important, and there are many ways to learn it. Of course, it looks like you read a lot, you count on LinkedIn, but also you want to be cautious on making sure you're not getting biased data, right? And you and I, one thing at least we have in common is I take a lot of notes as well. So definitely, because it helps me a lot, because we process so much information, but quite often miss out on some critical things. I do take notes on critical things. One thing I want to dive a little bit deeper, especially for the technical audience, right? When it comes to information security, there's principles, and you can apply the principles on technology. But one thing when I met you, I liked about you is you go hands-on very fast. You dive into it. That's when you said dive into it, that's what it came to my mind. So a lot of people hesitate to get their hands on keyboards. They will try to use a paper-based threat analytics, threat analysis. What would you encourage people to learn technology the right way? Yeah.
Yeah, try it, do it, go experiment, do the thing. It's so much easier today than it used to be. I remember late 90s, I was learning Cisco routers, so Cisco routers and switches. And it was very difficult if you didn't work for someone who was going to let you touch their Cisco routers and switches, like you didn't get to get hands-on. And so at some point, someone came up with this idea of router sims. So there were entire environments that would simulate, the interactive router terminal. And so you could learn how to configure things without actually having to buy a $20,000, $50,000 piece of gear. Today, there's so many labs, there's so many training facilities. It's so easy to do this. Go get hands-on, go experiment, because I can't tell you how many times in AWS, especially my professional services days, you talk to customers and be like, well, I don't know if I should encrypt my EBS volumes. Is there a performance hit? Is there this? Is there that? I have all these questions about how to configure it. And they're like, it's a button. It's literally a button, and then you choose what key you're going to use. Like,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of decisions to be made. And if you had been hands-on and you'd done it, you'd realize you're having a bunch of you have a bunch of concerns about things that you can't impact anyways. So
That is
go click
true.
the button, choose your key, and move on.
Yeah, yeah. But one more thing that I'll add on: make sure to turn it off or delete it after you try it, so you don't leave
Yeah,
it on.
that's true too. Oh, and don't do that in your production environment or anywhere that you work. That is probably not a great idea.
Yeah, I remember I left things on and it just costed a lot of money. So please remember to turn it off as well. Okay,
Especially if it's your, well, honestly, even if it's not your credit card, yeah, definitely turn it off.
perfect. I think this tool letter has become very popular, AI. So it's going to be inevitable. It's the emerging superpower now. What is your view on it? It could be from a cybersecurity perspective or just in general. What is your view on AI? I would love to hear if you have some view on cybersecurity as well when it comes to AI.
Yeah, so it's a powerful tool in the toolbox, is how I view it. And that tool can be used by us, the good folks, and it's now being used by, what we might term the bad folks. Um, the nature of tools. I don't when it comes to cybersecurity, I don't really believe in not developing the tool because we're afraid that someone's going to use it for something bad. To be honest, the bad guys probably had already developed it anyways, and the good folks just didn't know about it. And so I think AI is a powerful tool. It will continue to be a powerful tool. And so the more ways we can figure out how to operationalize it, I think the better. For a lot of folks today, there's a lot of misinformation or a lot of confusion about what machine learning and large language models and artificial intelligence really is. And so if you don't know, go take a course. I've taken a couple super high level introduction. They weren't even technical, but it really helped me understand what are the use cases that AI, ML, and LLMs are good for, and what are the use cases they're not good for. Like, ask an LLM to do math. You're not going to get a great result, right? It's doing prediction. And so the more that you can understand that, you can understand what AI is good for, what it's not good for, and that'll give you some better ideas about how to use it to your advantage. And then, like anything, as our adversaries begin using these tools, it just means things are going to happen faster. I've talked about, I think since the 2000s, I've talked about things happening in cyber time. Oftentimes we react in incident response and we remediate in human time. We have to make human decisions about what we're going to remediate and how we're going to remediate it, and what the potential impact is, what's the rollback plan, and those things all take time. Whereas our adversaries are moving in cyber time, and all AI, ML, in the hands of our adversaries means is these things are going to move faster. And so the more we can get ahead of it and put them in our toolbox and understand how to operationalize it, the better we'll be prepared to deal with those adversaries.
Interesting. I have a kind of follow-up question. Really, something just literally came to my mind, right? So what is potential security incident that can happen in an AI application? Let's say ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
What can go wrong in ChatGPT from a security perspective?
Well, there's a few things, especially if we talk about using something like an LLM like ChatGPT in the enterprise. Of course, first, intellectual property. Everything you put into that LLM is being used in the training model, and that data is not being protected at the same level that you would. And so if you're putting sensitive data in, that sensitive data is now out on the internet. You might as well have just posted it on your Facebook. Um, so yeah, that's one thing. I have not seen this firsthand, but I've read that there are some threat actors that are sabotaging the training of some of these large language models. If folks aren't aware, like, it takes a significant amount of resources and time to be able to train these LLMs so you can get a chat GPT that's actually usable. I think, I was just reading the other day, there's sort of an arms race going on where I think Mark Zuckerberg has just purchased a bunch, and I think Amazon's going to get in the race, and Google's been in the race for a while, Microsoft's doing it, and everyone's trying to build up these massive resources where they can train these LLMs and train them quickly. And so, as a threat, as an adversary, one of the things that you can do is, if you sabotage that training model, that's a lot of time to go back. It's a lot of time wasted. So that's another thing to think about is, protection of the training, making sure that the data that you're training that model with is good, and it's the data that you intended to train the model with.
So I want to quickly kind of pivot. A lot of people would look at you as an inspiration. They want to see how to become who you are today, right? So for this is a little bit more specific, like you have become a leader, right? Leadership responsibilities is a lot different than hands-on individual contributor responsibilities, right? How do you kind of balance performing your leadership responsibility? It could be sales, marketing, working with leaders, CEOs, CTOs, CIOs. On top of that, you are on top of the technical game. How do you balance this?
Yeah. For me, I sort of refuse to grow up is kind of my answer. I've had a lot of employers try to tell me, well, you have to choose if you're going to be management or if you're going to be an individual contributor. And my answer to that is usually, I don't want to. And so part of the way that I balance those things is, if I have a team and there's folks that I can empower and it's the right challenge for them, I want to see those folks succeed. And so I'm going to task them to do it. And the role I play on the IC side is usually I'm the last escalation point. When everyone else hasn't got it done, I'm the right person. Bring it to me. I may have no idea what you're talking about. This will be the first time I've ever seen it in my life, but this is what I built a career doing. is learning new things, and being the one that unblocks things.
Mhm.
So that's the take that that's the path that I've followed. It doesn't work for everybody. Some people really struggle with that mindset of, being both an individual contributor, and being a leader. Uh, but for me, that's how I approach it. It's very, I refuse to grow up, as they say. You can make me grow old, but you can't make me grow up.
This is awesome. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of cybersecurity professionals will be looking at this and trying to see what they should do in their career. What advice do you have for them for an aspiring cybersecurity professional?
Yeah, honestly, this is going to sound so strange, but teach. Um, if you want to reinforce something that you know, teach it to someone else.
Mhm.
Because to learn something is one thing, but to have a level of comprehension where you can explain it to someone else, that's knowledge. And so the greatest advice I give to people is, even if you just learned something, like if you're in school and you just learned something last week or last semester, go teach it to someone else, go mentor. It will help you immensely. Um, so that's part of what you get out of it, is you're reinforcing your own learning. The other thing that you get out of it is, I feel like in all the people I've mentored through the years, and it's got to be hundreds at this point, I've learned more from the folks that I've mentored than I think they've learned from me. Um, Meeting different people and learning from their experiences, and understanding what their challenges were, what they did to solve them, and what they learned. All of that is immensely useful in your career. And so it's one of the strangest things to say, especially to someone who's very junior and you feel like you don't know
Mhm.
anything. And it's like, well, go teach. Um, I'll be honest, as recently as last year, I am still teaching people IPv4 subnetting. How do I take an address and break it down and subnet it? What is all that classless interdomain routing? What does that slash mean? What are those numbers I'm looking at? When I'm configuring my networking, I still teach people how to do that.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and and I that's the greatest advice I have, is teach.
Yeah, I think it's just like you said, it's reinforces your learning, like whatever that you have learned. That's one. And again, you get to meet new people. They may be challenging you, or they ask you more questions, which can introduce more thoughts on what you have learned.
Hmm.
This is great. I'm going to try doing more of that too. Trying to teach more people. I hope people will put up with me. Um, this is great. Okay, I have one last question. Okay. Uh, this is more a little bit more personal, so I'm still going to ask. Okay, uh,
Yeah.
could you share a piece of advice or a lesson that has significantly, I'm going to underscore this, significantly influenced your career journey? Like from your career, what piece of advice do you want to share?
Uh, wow. There's lots of things that I think I could draw from, but I think one of the things that has helped me stand out throughout my career, and I'm gonna hang this on an Amazon leadership principle, and I'm kind of sorry for doing that, but deliver results. All of the knowledge in the world, all of the meetings, all of the code that you've contributed, like none of that matters if you don't achieve the mission. And so be focused, understand what it is you're trying to accomplish, and at the end of the day, accomplish the mission. And if you can do that, uh, I'll say no one remembers how you got there; they remember that you got there. That may not be entirely true, but it is something. Some folks can endlessly pontificate about things, and we do need that sometimes, right? But what can really make your career is if when you get that reputation for someone that can get the mission accomplished.
Get it done. Awesome. This is great. I think
Yeah.
you left with these two words, deliver results. I think if people haven't seen this before, go look up for Amazon Leadership Principles, deliver results. It's going to have a little more context to it. This is great, Michael. I think you hit the nail on the head. By the end of the day, if you cannot accomplish, it's this, you won't be able to prove yourself. This is very, very important. Again, thank you so much for participating here, and I loved all your responses. I'm sure people will enjoy the same. Is there anything last words that you want to say?
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored. It's kind of strange to think of myself as being someone that, people look up to, but when I did that intro and I'm like, man, 26 years of experience, I might have a thing or two to share with others.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks again, Michael. I think I appreciate having you. I think hopefully we'll do one more time again next time.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Cheers.
thank you. Yeah.